What's up, YouTube? I'm here to do my prediction video for UFC Fight Night, Magny versus Ponzinibbio. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Nad, can't say his last name, versus Anderson dos Santos. And to me, this is basically just two grapplers going at it, but I think Nad's just a much stronger wrestler. Anderson's got some decent jiu-jitsu, but I think Nad's jiu-jitsu in his own right is better overall. Like I said, I just think Nad's the better wrestler, and I think he'll be able to continuously get the top position and just win every round by 30-27 decision. Next, we got Devin Powell versus De Jesus. I can't say this guy's last name, but De Jesus, he is he's a decent striker with some grappling, but I just feel like his wrestling overall is not that great. And I feel like if Devin Powell gets us to the ground, he's the much better jiu-jitsu guy. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think that if De Jesus can come at Devin really fast and try to knock him out, he could win because Devin is super hittable, but I just don't see that happening. I think that Devin is eventually going to clinch up with this guy, drag it to the ground. I think once it's there, Devin's going to submit him with a rear naked choke, probably in the first round. Next is Loreno, I can't say this guy's last name, versus Hector Aldana. And to me, this is basically two strikers, and I think Loreno's just the better striker. It's 7-1 versus 4-1, and I know Loreno trains with Ponzinibbio. And like I said, I just think he looks like the better up-and-comer, so I'm leaning towards him. I don't know if but yeah, I think he'll win by knockout, maybe in the third round. Next is Roberto Brandi versus Austin Arnett. And to me, Roberto just seems like he's a really fast starter. He has decent striking, he has decent jiu-jitsu, but I think Austin's just better overall. I think that the longer this fight goes, the more it favors Austin Arnett. I think, Austin's only been finished once or twice, and Roberto's been finished every single one of his losses. And like I said, I feel like Roberto's just a really fast starter. I think the longer this goes, the more it favors Arnett, and I wouldn't be surprised if Arnett survives the first and then finishes him in the third. And that's what I see happening. I think Arnett gets a third round finish with either TKO or submission. Next, we got Alexandre Pantoja versus Aluka Sasaki, and to me, nothing in this fight makes me think Aluka can win. I think that he's already lost to Jussier Formiga and Wilson Hayes, and I feel like Pantoja fights exactly like those guys. I think both those guys are a little bit better, jiu-jitsu and wrestling overall, but I think Pantoja is a better striker than those two guys. And I still feel like he has a huge advantage on the ground like the two of them did. Aluka's basically, his striking is getting better, but he's still primarily just a jiu-jitsu guy, and I think Pantoja is just a much higher level jiu-jitsu guy, and like I said, I think his striking is better than Jussier and Wilson Hayes is anyway. So wherever this fight goes, I think Pantoja's got the advantage, and I think he's going to win by submission, probably in the second round. Next, we got Michael Pizarro versus Bartz Fimbinski, and this just depends on who's the better wrestler. It's hard to tell who the better wrestler is just because Michael Pizarro just moved up to welterweight, and I felt like he barely won against Zach Cummings, and I think Bart's a little bit better of a wrestler. It's tough, but I'm leaning towards Bart's. Like I said, this is just who's the better wrestler, because Michael Pizarro is a really small welterweight. It's just because he can't make the lightweight weight limit. Sooner or later, he's going to fight somebody that he's not going to be able to just, he's going to have a really hard time muscling with them because of how much the size difference is going to affect them. It might not be this fight, but it's going to happen sooner or later. But I do think it might be this fight because Bart's, to me, looks like such a strong wrestler. I'm leaning towards him. I say he wins by decision. Next is Cynthia Calvillo versus Paulina, and to me, I feel like this is just an easy fight for Cynthia to get back in the win column. She looks like she's a pretty solid up-and-comer. She's definitely going to win these fights. The fights that I thought she would have the most trouble with are the top 5 chicks, and I was right. I thought that she struggled a little against the Cookie Monster. I can't remember her name right now, but yeah, this is the type of fight where Cynthia Calvillo is just going to take this chick down and kick the shit out of her. I think this is going to end in the first round, either by TKO or by rear naked choke. Next, we got Guado Cantanetta versus Marlon Vera, and to me, Marlon Vera looks like he's just been getting better every fight. His jiu-jitsu's always been good, his striking's starting to catch up with that. To me, Guido is this super explosive striker wrestler guy, and I think that this just favors Marlon Vera wherever it goes. I think that Guido, he fights at a really high pace, and he doesn't pace himself very well. I think that if Marlon Vera can get this into the second and third round, and if he tries to take this to the ground, that's one of the biggest problem I have with Marlon Vera is he doesn't try to take it to the ground as often as he should. But if he starts to mix that into this game, I feel like there's no way he can't submit this dude, especially the later the fight goes. I think he's got the better conditioning and the better at pacing himself and the better jiu-jitsu. I think Guido's the better wrestler, but once this hits the ground, I think Marlon Vera is better everywhere. But yeah, I think Marlon Vera, like I said, if he can get out of that first round, which I think he should because he's never been finished, I think once it gets into round 2 and 3, he'll probably win by submission. So I got Marlon Vera by like second round submission. Next is Cesar Ferreira versus Ian Winchester, and to me, Ian's a good wrestler, but I think Cesar's just better everywhere. I think his striking is better, and I also think he's a better wrestler. In all honesty, he's so fucking big. It's honestly like unless you're like someone with crazy cardio, like Elias Theodore, where you can just keep on attacking him, even if you don't get the takedowns, you can just continuously like push him against the fence. I don't think that you're gonna be able to take this guy down unless you're a crazy good wrestler, and that's just what I see happening. I don't think Ian is a crazy good wrestler. I think he's a solid wrestler, and I think that he has decent striking and decent like conditioning. But like I said, I think Caesar's just too big and too strong of a wrestler. I think he's gonna be on top most of this fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if he wins by like arm trial or rear naked choke sooner or later. So that's what I got. I got Cesar Ferrer winning by submission. Next is Khalil Roundtree versus Johnny Walker, and to me, Khalil, I still don't think he's super amazing. I think he's just really good for that like first round, and that's why he's able to knock out a lot of guys. I think we've already seen it in the UFC. A lot of guys that have been able to survive that first round can beat him, but I don't think that's gonna happen in this fight. I think it's kind of one of those coin flip things. If he can keep in the first round, he's gonna win. If he can get out of the first round, you're probably gonna win. But to me, Johnny Walker's been finished in all 3 of his losses. He's like 14-3, and all of his losses are like knockout losses. So I just see that happening. I think that it's going to be a striking fight for as long as it lasts, but I think Khalil wins by first round KO. Next, we got Ricardo Lamas versus Darren Elkins, and to me, Darren Elkins has just been looking amazing recently. I think that, Ricardo Lamas doesn't look bad. He's been losing close fights, but I'm just leaning towards Elkins. I think that the longer this goes, the more it favors Elkins too. I think his conditioning is better at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Lamas catches him in the first or second round. Like I said, I think that his striking and overall submission game are probably slightly better. But I think Darren Elkins' wrestling, if he can just keep this against the fence, he can edge out the decision. It's really close. It just kind of depends on who you think is better at this point. And I think Elkins is just a little bit better, so I'm leaning towards him. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Ricardo Lamas wins this fight. This is probably the fight, if you're going to bet, I would pick the least because it's probably the closest fight in the whole card. But I'm leaning towards Elkins. I say he gets a split decision. Finally, we got Neil Magny versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. And this just depends on what Ponzinibbio looks like after coming off the layoff. Because I feel like he is better than Neil Magny. I think he's the better striker and overall like wrestler. Neil Magny, the best chance he has of winning this fight is to survive the first couple rounds, because I feel like if he can get this in around like 4 and 5, his conditioning is definitely way better. It's not that Santiago has bad conditioning, but Neil Magny is definitely much better, and I think the longer this goes, it definitely favors him. But I don't see that happening. I think that Santiago, like I said, as long as he's fine from his injuries, I think he should win by first round knockout. I just think he's the much better striker, and he's a lot faster, and he's got way more knockout power. Yeah, like I said, I think it's one of those things where it's like it depends who can do what. I think the longer this goes, the more favors Magny, but I just don't see that happening. I think Ponzinibbio gets the first round KO. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.